I take this time to point out the obvious, and that is we're 13 days away from August the 2nd, the date that Secretary Geithner has indicated that if we do not raise the debt ceiling, America runs the risk of defaulting on its debt and not paying our bills. I bring this up because this is an issue that we never should be this close to this deadline. It's been pointed out many times that the debt ceiling has very little to do with how much money we spend. It has nothing to do with how much money we spend because we've already spent this money. The question is whether we're going to pay our bills, whether the United States is going to live up to its obligations, or whether we're going to default on our debt. The prospect of not making that deadline is basically unthinkable, that the United States would give up its preeminent position internationally. It could jeopardize the U.S. currency of being the global currency. It would have an effect on everyone in this nation. We already have heard from the rating houses. Last week, both Standard & Poor's, S&P, and Moody's Investor Services warned that they are considering downgrading the country's credit rating if the debt ceiling is not raised. A smaller firm, Egan-Jones Ratings, has already downgraded the U.S. securities. Now, what happens if we get the major rating houses saying that we're no longer AAA bond rated? Well, it will have an immediate effect on the cost to taxpayers of this country. It will cost us more to borrow. That means that we will have to pay higher taxes in order to pay the interest on the national debt. It will affect all credit in this country. It's estimated that the typical homeowner will pay an extra $1,000 a year on mortgage costs. The average credit card holder will pay an extra $250 a year in credit card interest. In other words, the interest rates of the federal Treasury notes affect the entire interest rates in this nation. All of us will pay more. It will cost jobs. It will cost us in our retirement savings. It will affect each one of us. And yesterday, the people of Maryland found out another way that the failure to increase the debt ceiling will have on Maryland taxpayers. And that is, the rating houses have indicated that if the federal credit is jeopardized, the state of Maryland's AAA bond rating is in jeopardy. Why? Because Maryland depends, as most states, upon the federal government. Maryland, the Governor O'Malley, as the presiding officer knows, when he was governor of West Virginia, you managed your state well. And the credit ratings that you deserve were based upon what you did in your state. That's true in Maryland. But Marylanders will find that their credit costs will go up if we don't increase the debt ceiling by August the 2nd. We're all in this. So it should be really something that is, we should never be this close, and we should make sure that we increase the debt ceiling on August 2nd. Yes, I do hope that we use this as an opportunity to get our spending and our budget in order. We need to manage our deficit. We all understand that. We've got to bring our debt under proper management. Now, I've taken the floor before to sort of go over how we got here. I'm not going to do that today. But I am here to tell you that the Democrats in the Senate, under Senator Conrad, have come in with a proposal that we think is well-balanced, that has more deficit reduction, quite frankly, than any other plan that's out there, that it's comprehensive, and it will allow us to be able to continue to grow our economy, because the best thing we can do for our deficit is to create more jobs in this country. And the Conrad Democratic budget does that by investing in education, by investing in innovation and in infrastructure, but also recognizing that we have to bring the deficit under control. It protects Medicare and Medicaid because we know those programs are important for our seniors, important for our economy. So we protect high-priority programs, more deficit reduction, by having a balanced approach. That's what we should do in addition to raising the debt ceiling. We should have a comprehensive approach. Let me just give you some of the numbers of what the Conrad budget does. It brings spending down to 22%. I heard some of my colleagues talk about the historical averages. Well, 22% of our economy would be the same spending amount on average as we had when Ronald Reagan was president. And I think most of them would agree that the Reagan years were certainly conservative years on government spending. That would bring it down to that percentage, despite the demographic changes in this country. I think that's quite a significant accomplishment. The revenues would be equal to what the revenues were as a percentage of our economy when Bill Clinton was president of the United States, in which we had the strongest economic growth in modern history, the greatest job growth in modern history. So these are responsible programs. It also, by the way, says to our government workers, who should not be used as scapegoats, they're doing incredible work under difficult circumstances, they have to do more with less. They've already made the sacrifice with 2-year pay freeze. The Conrad Democratic budget says enough's enough and doesn't ask our federal workers to make additional sacrifices beyond the 2-year pay freeze that they've already been subjected to. Now, I know there's other efforts here, and I hope we'll continue those efforts. I've talked before about the Bowles-Simpson approach, and we have a bipartisan group working. That's how we should proceed. But quite frankly, Mr. President, this cut, cap, and balance is not a bipartisan effort. It is an extreme effort by the Republicans to bring forward a budget that is even more severe and more radical than the Ryan budget. I call it cut, cap, and kill when it comes to Medicare. Why do I say that? Well, I've taken the floor in regards to the Republican Ryan budget to point out that the impact on the Medicare system would be to increase the cost on average to our seniors when it's fully implemented of an additional $6,500 of cost to our seniors to pay for health care. Mr. President, I know you've been through West Virginia, I've been through Maryland, and I tell you, our seniors are already paying too much in health care. They can't afford another $6,500 a year to their health care bills. We should be looking at reducing their health care costs, not increasing it. But the cut, cap, and balance approach would go even beyond that. It's estimated there'd be another $2,500 of cost on top of the $6,500, or $9,000 of additional costs when fully implemented to our seniors on health care needs. Well, that's cut, cap, and kill of Medicare. And I don't think any one of us want to be responsible for that. I heard my colleagues talk about job growth, and we all are for job growth. The cut, cap, the balance is estimated to cost us hundreds of thousands of private sector jobs. And why do we say that? Well, the objective here is not very subtle. The objective, as the Heritage Foundation has said, and this just was sent out, this will cut the size of the federal government by about half within 25 years. Now, are we going to tell our students that they can do with half of their Pell Grants? Yesterday, I joined students from around the nation and presidents of colleges to talk about the importance of the Pell Grant. At Morgan State University in Maryland and University of Maryland Eastern Shore, both historically black colleges and universities, in which 80% of their student body is made up of minority students, 50% depend upon Pell Grants. Half of that number could not be there without Pell Grants. And now we're saying it's okay to cut the Pell Grants in half? No, it's not okay. Are we going to tell our seniors that we're going to cut Social Security in half? Are we going to tell those people who need unemployment insurance that they're going to get 50%? It's not sustainable. I heard my colleagues talk about predictability. Well, the cut, cap, and balance is not going to be sustained. It's a radical approach. We can do better. And quite frankly, David Brooks, the conservative columnist, I think said it best. And I quote what he said about where the Republicans, particularly in the House, are trying to lead this nation. And David Brooks wrote, and I quote, "The Republican Party may no longer be a normal party. Over the past few years, it has been infected by a faction that is more a psychological protest than a practical governing alternative. The members of this movement do not accept the logic of compromise, no matter how sweet the terms. If you ask them to raise taxes by an inch in order to cut government by a foot, they say no. If you ask them to raise taxes by an inch to cut government by a yard, they will still say no." End quote from David Brooks, the conservative columnist. We need to have the system work. We need Democrats and Republicans working together. We need a budget plan that's predictable, that gets our budget under control, that allows America to create the jobs that we need, that invests in education, innovation, and infrastructure so America can continue to lead the world in economic growth. That's what we need to do. It starts by raising the debt limit so America does not default on its obligations, and for us to work in a bipartisan manner to develop a budget plan that gets the debt under control but allows America to live up to its commitments to our seniors, to our students, and to create the job opportunities for tomorrow. That's what we need to do, and that's what this senator is prepared to do.